Get the Intel, the podcast meant for those of us trying to find out what the hell is going on in the field. Here we discuss tools, techniques, and approaches that you can implement to streamline operations and let you focus on your craft.
Hello, Chad Gill here. I am the host of the Get the Intel podcast, where I talk with leaders in contracting, management, and really anyone helping us do business better. This episode is brought to you by Lamin & Coaching. Lamin & Coaching is a business coaching program with a focus on contractors in and around construction. We not only help with proposing solutions and methods, but we implement them in your business as well. After all, good ideas are not useful until they're implemented. We're also sponsored by Workforce Recon. Recon is a project tracking software that connects the office to the field. Their app Field Recon is built with a field-first mentality, developed by contractors for contractors. So if you're tired of finding out what happened days later, check us out at workforcerecon.com. So on today's episode, we have the pleasure of working with JJ White, a seasoned entrepreneur and certified EOS implementer. He's had a remarkable journey spanning over 20 years. JJ's story began when he acquired his first franchise unit for Dale Carnegie Training, the world's largest training and coaching company, at the young age of 27. As a world-class facilitator and executive coach, he has mentored hundreds of leaders, and his experience led him to serve as the board chair for the Virginia Council of CEOs. And drawing on his vast experience, he embraced his calling to become a professional EOS implementer, guiding leadership teams through the transformative journeys. To this day, he remains a partner and an investor in Dale Carnegie and the F45 Fitness Franchises, walking in the shoes of an entrepreneur and business owner each and every step of the way. So JJ, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Man, it's been a while. You know, it's 27 is young now when you're getting
yeah, I feel like a baby back then compared to now.
I knew it all. Yeah, I knew it all at 27. What are you talking about?
Well, that was the other issue I had.
That's yeah, that could be part of my issue.
Probably how I got into it to begin with. I was just naive because I knew it all.
Exactly. Sometimes you got to be arrogant enough to try.
100%. Or arrogant, ignorant, which,
yeah, exactly.
Some both together.
They are found together. Yeah, true. So Dale Carnegie, how do you buy a Dale Carnegie franchise at 27?
Well, very carefully. Quick story. I went to work for the company. Went to college because I thought I was going to be a CPA. Most people don't have that as life goals, but I realized in college it probably wasn't a good life goal. Even though I loved the accounting world, I didn't like working in that environment. So I went to work for a payroll company that put me through Dale Carnegie. And then shortly thereafter, I went to work in sales because everyone kept saying go into sales. 8 months after I started, the franchise owner needed to get out of the business. I said, I'm 27. I have zero experience. I've been working here 8 months, and I actually don't have any money. I'd love to buy your business.
I'm your guy.
I'm your guy. And so he owner financed. I'm giving you the short version. He owner financed the sale. He really had to go. It was kind of a quick exit. And the franchisor was in between leadership teams and kind of like more formalizing the process of selling and transferring these. So I'm the guy that literally the door was shutting, the door was shutting, and I just squeezed in real quick and be like, yeah, I belong here. Yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And the rest is history.
Man, that is fantastic.
It was fun.
And then F45 Fitness, how does that come into play?
I had actually a salesperson in my Carnegie business years ago I stayed in touch with who just brought the idea to me right after COVID hit, and he wanted some coaching on how to buy a franchise. And in that conversation, I said, hey, do you want to partner in this? Because I had just got diagnosed with diabetes, and I was just in the initial phases of changing my nutrition and exercise life because the doctor told me, you have control over this right now. If you do everything we tell you to do, you can get rid of this. And so I had this passion and calling around taking care of myself. And of course, with the Carnegie side and the social and mental transformation that Carnegie does, it's like, well, I want to get into the physical side of it. And it was a little rough because, as you can imagine, there weren't a lot of people loaning money to start up restaurants and fitness centers in COVID, considering it was illegal to do that for several months. And so it took us a little while to get off the ground, but we've been in, We're not the only owner of those in the area, but our studio has been open for about a year in the Richmond area and getting ready to open up. I shouldn't say trying to open up the second one in Branderville.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, I used to live in Branderville.
Yeah.
So good area to be. Well, that's great, man. So EOS, I mean, we are big proponents of EOS. I think it's a great way to run a company. It's we also hear, we have some clients that use scaling up, and they're always like, well, scaling up is for bigger companies, EOS is for smaller. I don't know that I agree with that. Does it fit anywhere for you?
So I'm definitely not an expert on scaling up, and whenever this comes up with potential clients, I tell them is like, you need to investigate both and then make a decision on which one's the best fit for you, because it is different for the type of business that you're running, meaning scaling up may just be a better fit because of their systems. And the only thing I would say about EOS is we try so hard to keep everything extremely simple. Less is more. And in some cases, scaling up can add more complexity to it, which does fit a larger business in general, because most larger businesses are much more complex. But there's billion-dollar companies with thousands and thousands of employees running on EOS for the simple fact they want more simplicity in the business. And it's the first leadership whenever we work with teams and we talk about hitting the ceiling. The first leadership ability that you have to turn to when you start to hit the ceiling in growth is simplify. Because everybody's business, by its instinctive nature, you go to complication. Anytime you're in a leadership team, you go to solve a problem, you're most likely going to solve that with a complicated solution before you go out of your way to find a simple solution. And I think that's where a lot of differences happen with our operating system compared to others. It really forces simplicity along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that complex method is what ended up having me owning a software company. Sure would have been better to have bought that. There was bound to be something on the shelf I could have used.
Yep.
But yeah, so no, I agree with you. I think your answer is probably appropriate and much wiser. Generally, when my clients ask me, I was like, well, anything is better than what you're not using now.
That's right. And here's the other key. Every company that has just one employee in producing revenue immediately has an operating system. There's an operating system there. It's asking the question and answering it. Is it giving us the most value? And are we getting as much time as we can out of this business and value and all these other things? And what do we replace it with? That's what you're answering when you talk about EOS or another system.
So when you have somebody how do you define what a business operating system is?
It's a framework that some people would say mirrors what the operating system is on your computer. It keeps all your applications running. And generally speaking, those applications, at least from an EOS perspective, are all people. Okay? And how do you keep your people moving in the direction in which they're supposed to be moving? And in EOS, we have the 6 key components that those people, because at the end of the day, EOS is just a system for harnessing and managing human energy. And that's what that operating system does, is it puts it in the best order. And if you can get the system operating to its maximum capacity, it's putting all the people in your company operating in their unique ability. And then everything else is kind of operating in the background, your core processes, your vision, your scorecards, your meeting pulses, your goal setting sessions, just always getting them moving in the same, maybe not the same direction, because not everyone's moving in the same direction in a business, but everyone's moving in the right direction.
What do you find people struggle with the most when you're getting these things implemented?
If you look at this, and I'll read them off really quick, the 6 key components: vision, people, data, issues, process, traction. The longest to implement, which is definitely tied to the hardest, is process. By their nature, most companies and most people, especially leadership team members, generally speaking, don't like process. Some hate it. Now, I'll tell you, they want it, and they want someone to create it, and they want someone to hold everyone accountable to it. They just don't want it to be them.
It's kind of like visible abs. Everybody wants them. Nobody wants to do and not do what you have to do. to happen.
And unfortunately, there is no shake weight in the process industry. You can't go and buy an ab roller and just hit that in 12 weeks and have an 8-pack. It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication and some blood, sweat, and tears to get through that, certainly. Now, that's the longest, but not necessarily always the hardest. Generally speaking, always the hardest is the people component. And the two tools in there is right people, right seats. Yep, you got it. And so speaking, I know we're speaking to primarily a construction audience. I have several construction clients, and they suffer from this the most, which is what I'm going to share with you. JJ, you don't understand how hard it is to find people in this industry. I'd much rather have somebody over there at 20% than at 0%, but they have no idea how bad that person is killing them. And I could probably take up the rest of our time just talking about that one issue of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes people do tend, and it's fine if we do. It's people do tend to they deal with the devil that you know, and what I hate about it is one of the I guess the triggering moments for me was to start coaching was an idea that an employee can hold you hostage. That infuriates me. You work this hard, you do these things, you go through all that just to have somebody tell you that you can't do this without me. And if you really can't do it without them, then you're held hostage. And if you think it's true and they think it's true, it is painful.
Yes, sir. See it all the time. And in
many
cases,
is a great way to get around it. But
and it's interesting because in many cases the employees don't even realize. I'm speaking directly to the construction industry. A lot of the employees don't even realize they even have that power to hold a company hostage. They're just we call it head trash. It's in the head trash of the leadership teams thinking like, oh, what am I going to do if we let those people go? It's, well, what if they just quit today? Then what are you going to do? You can't keep them from leaving. In fact, if they were to quit, you would throw a party, but because you have to fire them, and figure it out, you're willing to turn a cheek, except for the fact tomorrow you're going to burn 2 hours on that people problem instead of solving it.
And it's funny, we had a client who recently had an employee who left, and this it was a bad fit, it wasn't the right person, wasn't in the right seat, the classic situation. But it's one of those ones. And then there's I say half an hour, there's a day where you're like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Normally it's a weekend because they quit on a Friday. And then your weekend is trashed, and then you come in Monday. And that's when it begins. For the next 7 days, all you're going to hear is, you should have gotten rid of them sooner. If only you knew. And then, and which is, a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking. And then followed by, you could just keep on going. I mean, with rare exceptions, you can keep going.
It's funny how that happens.
It is. You can't
Nature abhors a vacuum. So when that person's gone and it creates a vacuum, it will get filled in somehow.
Yeah, you'll somehow, and typically team members, especially if it's a cancerous person that's pulling in, everybody's so happy they're gone. They're like, look, I'll go check the mail from now on. Okay. I got that part covered, and it can be something right. But no, you do see that, and it is very difficult to find people, but that doesn't mean you can't, or that you can't do without them.
And if you think about all the good people that you do have, you found them. And if there's one thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is whenever you do have to remove that person from their seat, they are actually keeping you from truly finding the next person. Because you might be interviewing or you might even be running an ad, but as long as someone's there doing half the job, you don't have a full incentive to replace that person. Once they're gone, you're really serious about trying to find that person, and that person that's cancerous may be the one thing keeping you from the great person from showing up in the organization, from just sitting there.
For sure. And one thing that I picked up from a client who said, he was like, you never know when that one person is going to cost you 2 of your good people, because they will run them out. And so now you don't want to lose one, so instead you lose 2. You lose 2 A players because of 1 C player, and it's like that's a much worse situation. Normally that will move a client to act.
Yep.
But yeah, tough spot. So question, and this is kind of EOS, definitely operating system. So we hear about, delegation and being able to pass things off and letting go and things like that. What do you think is if you're going to give and delegate a task, what would you say is like the key components to being able to delegate a task well? Like how do you know when you've done it well? Because people just are not notoriously, this is not a natural thing to be able to delegate well. I mean, if you would, you wouldn't be frustrated with your kids' chores.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think?
I think a big part of it is this is actually a system that we've used inside of the Dale Carnegie business for many people, it's a reflection to what were you really doing when you delegated it. At the lowest end of this, it's dumping. Okay. You really didn't delegate it. You literally threw it over the fence and said, here, this is yours to do. Delegating's about in the middle to maybe upper 3/4 quartile of what should be happening. But then even beyond delegating is deputizing. And there's a level of authority, control, and accountability that happens so that don't get me wrong, most people just want to get to a point where they can effectively delegate. But if you can really get to a point where you're deputizing someone, it's a whole different ballgame. And it starts with communication. It also starts, or doesn't start with, it starts with communication, but you also have what are the follow-up mechanisms here? And what authority does this person have to really make it happen the way they need to be, the way it needs to be happening? In the manufacturing world, we call that the hidden factory. It's not necessarily how you tell somebody something needs to be done, but it's how someone that really understands it better than you do gets it done. And what's really happening on the quote shop floor is the best way. And it's not management's way, it's the best way. And in EOS terms, there's a tool that we use called Delegate and Elevate. So it's not just how you communicate the task and how you get to delegate it. It's what are you truly delegating, both from your perspective. Is it something you're not good at? Is it something you're good at? Or is it something you're great at? You're probably not delegating something you're great at. Is it something you don't like to do? Is it something that you do like to do? Or is it something that you love to do? Because if you're taking something, ultimately, if you're taking something off your plate that you don't like to do and you're not good at, which by the way, you should be getting rid of that really soon if you haven't, you want to make sure you're delegating it to someone that at least likes to do it and is good at it. Because what I see often is somebody takes something that they don't like to do and they're not good at, and they dump it onto someone that doesn't like to do it and they're not good at. What good is that going to do you? I mean, you're creating more of a mess that way. And then this even further ties in to a concept called unique ability, which comes from Dan Sullivan in Strategic Coach, that if you can find something that they are great at and they love to do, and it's something that you're not great at, you don't love to do, and you have to do it, if you can take that from down here and give it to them up there, you're elevating them because now they're getting more work that they really love to do. And as leaders, we second guess what people really love to do. First of all, we believe, since I don't even like to do it or love to do it, why would they like to do it and love to do it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're not connected enough to your people to know that they would literally do that all day long if you let them do it. And part of that is just understanding someone else, and you have to be intentional about going through these exercises to really understand how what someone's unique ability is, even what your own unique ability is, because as leaders, we really want to get as much off of our plate as we can so that we can focus in on just our unique ability. But even things that you like to do and you're good at get in the way of your unique ability, which are things that you love to do and you're great at. And we get really trapped into that. We really do, because it can give us energy, it can charge us up, but it's not the really, really cool stuff. And so anyway, I know I threw a whole lot out there. It has to do with how you delegate and to whom you're delegating and exactly what you're delegating, and making sure that all these things line up. Otherwise, you're going to start to just get really frustrated. We ain't even talked about the fact of, well, what do you do if I don't have anybody to actually delegate it to, or I don't trust them? I mean, you and I talked about that offline.
How do you build trust when you're trying to do that?
Yep. And sometimes I've been, in my experiences, I've been very open and candid with certain people. Like I would even say, I'm not sure you're going to be good at this. And I don't think you're sure you're good at it, but I think we should give this a shot and see what happens. You just control that activity a little bit more. Don't go too far off the grid, just to see if somebody, and by the way, in the Johari window, I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but in the Johari window, that's the unknown, right? I don't know about that. If I don't see that in that person and they don't see that in themselves. Well, the only way you ever discover the unknown is to try something on like that in a very controlled environment. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You could find something that's actually in their unique ability. And they lived half of their life not knowing that they would love to do that kind of stuff and be amazing at it. That's what great leaders do, right? You can either just go the safe way, or you can start to explore a little bit. But you can't dump that stuff. That's not stuff you can just dump and be like, I don't think they're going to be good at it, but I'm going to give it a shot. And then, if it doesn't work.
And then be angry. I
Yep.
promise to be angry. You're like,
Yep.
no, that's not going to help this. And I think that's a great point. And, I think I do see a lot of people that struggle with the guilt of, why should I give it to somebody if I don't want to do it? Well, the thing is, like, somewhere out there in the world, somebody gets up every day and thought, if I could just reconcile a checkbook today, just getting those numbers to come even is beautiful. And
Never know.
No, I'd rather have a hole in the head.
You never know.
If they were like, hey, you need to jump on a podcast today, they would lose their mind. So don't assume that some people, like, I used to think it was very, very magnanimous. I'm like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Well, that's just unrealistic. You're going to be good at things. They're going to be good at things. And you're going to have things you don't like to do. And so you're just keeping them from having joy too. So
it's like there's humility there both ways, isn't it? It's also not believing that you could do everything and eventually be great at it, because don't kid yourself. There's definitely things you suck at, and there's things I suck at, and there's things they suck at, and it's okay to know that. Like, in fact, I really need to know that, so I quit trying to do those things instead of, like, if it is to be, it's up to me mentality.
Yeah, in fact, going through strategic coach, we were, one of the things are like, how do you figure out what your unique ability is? Well, you just start giving away everything that you can, and what you're left with is your unique ability. It's basically just, if you can delegate it, if you can give it to someone and deputize, I like that one, where they have ownership of it, and you can say, this is what I want, and you figure out how, then what you're left with is your unique ability. And that's because a lot of times I kept searching for what I was good and what it was. It's okay. People will tell you what you're bad at. So get rid of that. If you're married, you have a boss, you have coworkers, you're going to know what you're bad at.
That's one of your frustrations. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, no, that's awesome, man. That's, like I said, I think that's a really key component to what we're doing. And I appreciate you joining us. And you're up for it, man. I think roll through a couple of these. Golly dang, it's a good therapy session.
Anytime. It is. Sometimes I think this was based on writing, and I can't remember who quoted it, but he says, I write in order to understand what I believe. And I think speaking and sharing things with people, sometimes you need to outwardly communicate it either in the written word or the spoken word to truly to figure things out. And it's kind of missing in our society. I think we're left sometimes too alone to figure out something, that if you can just talk through something with someone or write things down, journal, it's all of a sudden the answers just start to appear. It's amazing.
Kind of percolate up. And
Yep.
that doesn't happen through text. Just need somebody kind of bouncing off and giving those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
No, JJ, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I'm sure you're, helping lots of clients here. And you're based in the Richmond area. Can you work
in Richmond?
Or,
Yep. I try to keep my practice to the Richmond metro area. Charlottesville, Williamsburg is about as far as I'll go. And and anyone has any interest in EOS, it's you can go to richmondeos.com and EOSRichmond.com. I just got it backwards. EOSRichmond.com, and it'll take you right to me.
Perfect. Richmond EOS. We'll put a link in the
There
podcast. Thanks a lot, JJ. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Get the Intel. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.